Okay, let's talk budget external camera monitors. I've had a bunch of these over the years, including the small HD focus, which was not that much of a budget option, to be honest, as it was about £600 at the time. But I've also used monitors from companies like Andy Cine and Feel World, and I've always just found issues with all of them, such as poor build quality, poor battery life, the touchscreen not as responsive as I would like, latency issues, and generally just not bright enough outdoors. I eventually just stopped using external monitors altogether and just settled on using the tiny Sony screen and the viewfinder. But as we all know, there definitely are times when having an external screen is almost a must, such as having an off-camera director's monitor for client jobs, or if you're filming yourself for a YouTube video and the swivel screen is blocked by your teleprompter, as mine is right now, or your camera just might be a bit further away because you're using a longer lens. Another reason could be that you're doing top-down shots and you don't want to have to keep looking up all the time at the tiny swivel screen. So thank my lucky stars when Shimbol reached out to me to have a look at their 5.5-inch Memory 1 monitor that basically addresses all the issues I've ever had with budget monitors, such as having a crazy bright, very bright 2000 nit screen, which is even much brighter than the Shinobi monitor, which is roughly in the same sort of price category as this one. As well as this is made from a very high quality aluminium metal to ensure an amazing build quality, and the touchscreen is very responsive, just as if you're using an iPhone. Plus it also has one crazy standout feature that I can't believe a monitor that costs only $280 can have, which I will get onto a bit later on in this video. But first up, here's what you get in the box. A really nice cold shoe mount. Usually these are made of a rubbish plastic and I've had to purchase them separately on Amazon to get a better quality one. But this one is a really good quality metal. Also has a glass protector inside, which is key for a external monitor or any kind of monitor, or even a phone. As you well know, they get scratched up very easily. A HDMI cable and also an SD card. Why an SD card, you might be wondering, for an external monitor? Or as I mentioned before, this monitor has one crazy feature that I didn't expect that makes it an absolute steal at $280, which is that it is a recorder as well. You can actually record footage up to 4K 25p on this monitor, and although this recording does have some limitations that I'll get onto later, I feel like this in itself makes this monitor incredible value for money. Battery life. As I mentioned in the intro, poor battery life on these budget monitors have always been something that's made me give up on them, as having to charge and carry around multiple NPF Z50 batteries and having to swap them out every hour was just too much of a pain for me. This is where the Shimbol Memory 1 shines, as it draws about 10 watts of power, making the battery life very good. With a Sony NPF 750 battery, I'm getting about 100 minutes of battery life when recording with the monitor, and over 2 hours, up to 2 hours and 15 minutes of battery life with it on but not recording and just using it as a standalone monitor, which is most likely what you're going to be using this monitor for. That is of course when it's not at max brightness, or around 50% brightness, so it probably could be a bit less at max brightness. Build quality. So the build quality on this is absolutely amazing, and it's a high quality aluminium that feels much more premium than its $280 price tag. Usually monitors in this sort of price range are just almost completely plastic. Talking about brightness, as I mentioned before, it's 2000 nits, so absolutely amazing for shooting outside in bright sunny conditions. And this is just fantastic for me not having to struggle with the tiny Sony screen or having to keep looking in the viewfinder, especially when I want to get things like low down shots. Looking in the viewfinder, it can just be a complete pain. So it's extremely heat resistant. It's got 2 fans along the back and it dissipates the heat very well through these 2 fans and doesn't really get hot at all. You also have control over the levels for the fans, so you can go from auto, lower or higher. And compared to other monitors I've used in the past, these fans are not really that loud at all. As I mentioned in the intro, it's got a really good responsive touchscreen, very much like the level of if you're using an iPhone, which is one thing that my small HD focus suffered with, as it was an all touchscreen only monitor, which meant no buttons. And only after a few months of owning the HD focus from Small HD, the touchscreen stopped working completely, making it basically impossible for me to use. And this is where the Shimbol Memory One shines as well, because it does have 3 external buttons on the monitor, which is great, as this allows you to access your 3 most used functions with a quick button push rather than having to go into the touchscreen menu to toggle things on and off. The weight of it is only 283 grams, which is really good considering it's made out of metal, and it has an anti-twist mounting point at the bottom and a regular mounting cold shoe on the side for a camera accessory or to be able to mount it vertically as well. Other little nice touch is that it gives you a 2-minute warning prior to the screen shutting off, just to let you know that it will be powering off soon. I have had other monitors in the past that have just shut off out of nowhere. Even with the battery saying it has 50% left, it just shuts it off randomly. So knowing that it's going to be shutting off in those exact 2 minutes is really helpful and useful to know. The image quality of the monitor is a 1920 by 1080 monitor, which is really, really good and is a standard pixel size for a monitor of a 5-inch. It's got the right amount of contrast and sharpness straight out of the box, but you can tweak this if you need to. It's got a very nice pinch in and zoom feature, which is amazing for being able to pinch in and check your focus. The latency is also very, very good on this monitor, and to my eye, I could not notice any latency when plugged in over HDMI in. And as well as HDMI in, there's also HDMI out, so I can hook this up to a wireless system such as the TP Mini, also made by Shimbol, and I can have a really good usable wireless monitoring system to be used as a director's monitor. This TP Mini comes in at just $89, which is crazy for a wireless system. It's probably the most affordable wireless solution to wireless monitoring around, from what I can see. So as I mentioned before, it's got an SD card, and the SD card can also be used for loading LUTs onto the monitor. And as well as this, Shimbol are amazing enough to include a load of conversion LUTs preloaded onto the monitor to use straight away. There's also DC power input, but unfortunately no DC power adapter included. On the side, there's also a headphone jack for audio monitoring, as well as a USB-C input. However, this cannot be used to power the monitor. It's only there for firmware updates. So looking inside the menus of the Shimbol Memory One, you've got all the standard color and exposure assist tools such as waveform, RGB parade, histogram, and vector scopes for checking skin tones. And the opacity of these on the monitor can be adjusted, which is a nice touch. In the second menu is where you can select your safe area and the ratio of the safe area, as well as grid lines and anamorphic desqueeze if you're using anamorphic lenses, and markers as well. For focus, there is peaking, which you can also adjust the color of and the amount depending on your taste. And in menu 4, you can also find 2 more exposure tools. The first is my favorite, which is false color, and if you're not sure how this works, I have made a video about this before, which I'll link down in the description. And the second exposure tool here are the zebras. In the last menu is where you can control the recording quality you would like, all the way from LT, which is the lowest quality, to XQ, which is the highest. And as well as this, there's also timecode, playback, and the ability to add a name to your recorded files. Now, as amazing as this camera monitor / recorder is for $280, there are a few downsides that you should be aware of. There is actually only one issue I have with the camera monitor itself, using as only a monitor. The rest of the issues I found are actually to do with the internal recording function. So the only con or downside that I found with this monitor so far is the boot up time, which is not great at about 15 to 20 seconds. Usually you'd want this to be 5 or 6 seconds max. However, I will say that because the battery life is so good on this monitor, it kind of makes it less of an issue, as you don't really need to be turning the monitor off as much as you would turn off your camera to save battery. The main cons of this monitor are regarding the internal recording function. So firstly, although the internal recording on the monitor is there, which is a huge bonus, I need to keep stressing, for a monitor this cheap, it's only up to 4K 25p 8-bit recording, even at the highest quality, which won't be as good as what most cameras record these days, such as my A7S III, which records up to 4K 120 frames per second 10-bit. But I do like that it's still there for an extra backup recording. Like I said, for me, it's more of a bonus that a monitor this cheap even allows you to record internally anyway. Another problem with the internal recording is that once you start recording, only the function buttons work and you cannot enter the menu anymore. Also, the recording system that it uses on the monitor is a FAT32 file system, which means that it creates a new file every 4 gigabytes. If you've had a GoPro in the past, you might know about this, which is more of a hindrance than an advantage in my opinion. The LUTs themselves are not able to be baked into the image itself if you wanted to, and it's just there for reference only, which is okay for my workflow. However, when you do use the internal recording on the monitor itself, the show LUT is actually dropped from the screen itself. And for me, this is actually really rubbish and kind of makes it not usable. If I was to be using LUTs on this monitor, I'd most likely not use the internal recording function. As for me, it's more important for me to be able to see my log image with a LUT on than for the redundant low res backup recording. But like I said, that's only if I'm going to be shooting in log, which I don't do always. One other slightly strange thing that I feel like is more of an oversight is that there is no info on how much card space you have left when recording internally, which is pretty huge oversight from Shimbol, as it's a pretty basic bit of information and very key, because if you are relying on this to record footage, you want to know how much space you have left. So my conclusion for this monitor is fairly simple, to be honest. Definitely buy this if you're looking for an amazing quality monitor to just be a monitor only, as there isn't anything better on the market at this price range. It does have an external recording option, but it's more for a low resolution redundancy recording, as most cameras nowadays have specs better than what this monitor can record. It's just a huge bonus in my opinion to even have that. So do not buy this if you're looking for an off-camera recording option that has higher specs than your camera. If you're looking for something like that, then you're going to be better off going down the Atomos route or Blackmagic route. Thanks very much for watching the review, guys. If you've got any questions about the monitor, do let me know down in the comments, and I will see you in the next video. Take care. Have a great day.